The sexual life of adult women is a dark continent for psychology. Sigmund Freud. A statement that echoed through the corridors of Vienna over a century ago, and still leaves many men frozen in place today. Why? Because even with all the knowledge, all the books, all the modern theories, we're still fumbling in the dark. You've felt it, haven't you? That moment when you're certain you're doing everything right. You're attentive, you're respectful, you're present, but something's missing. She pulls away, emotionally, physically. Or maybe she stays, but there's a wall. Something you can't name. And that's where Freud begins, not with clarity, but with confusion. Because female desire, in its rawest form, doesn't present itself logically. It whispers, it hides, it contradicts. It can reward kindness, and yet be ignited by danger. It may reject what's stable, and crave what's uncertain. That's not an insult. That's not criticism. That's a reality. One that modern men have been trained to ignore, if not fear. But here's the brutal truth. If you ignore the symbolic language behind her actions, her shifts, her silence, you'll never understand what she truly wants. Because words won't tell you. Not really. She might say, "I just want someone who listens." But that's not enough. Because she's not a checklist. She's an emotional universe, and you were never taught to read the stars. But Freud tried, and what he discovered was unsettling. To explore what women want, Freud didn't just ask women. He listened to their dreams, their slips of the tongue, their anxieties, their fears, their contradictions. He realized something few dared to say. Desire in women doesn't follow the surface. It doesn't respond to logic. It emerges from what he called the unconscious, a chaotic realm where repressed longing, symbolic imagery, and deep emotional memory rule. So when she hesitates, when she's distant, when her passion fades, you can't solve it by buying flowers. You can't fix it with another dinner date. You need to decode what's underneath. Why is this so hard for men? Because most of us were raised with clarity as our compass. If A, then B. If she smiles, she's interested. If she cries, comfort her. But women aren't puzzles with pre-printed solutions. They're stories, written in metaphors, emotions, fragments. Freud's exploration revealed this. What women desire often defies language altogether. And in that space, where language collapses and the symbolic begins, most men go silent. Here's where the modern man loses. He thinks he can earn her desire. Through effort, through consistency, through being the good guy. But she's not moved by what's predictable. She's moved by what touches her internal myth. The man who can awaken her story, not just meet her needs. Desire lives at the edge of danger and safety, of the known and the unknown. And Freud knew, without the courage to step into that paradox, you'll forever be guessing. So the question isn't, what does she want? It's deeper. It's, what does she not know she wants, but is unconsciously drawn to? That's where the real game begins. Now stop for a moment. Close your eyes and ask yourself, when was the last time you stopped trying to please a woman and started trying to understand her? Not through her words, but through her contradictions? Through her resistance? Through what she didn't say? It's in those silences that her real language is spoken, and Freud knew it well. Every symptom, every avoidance, every joke is a clue, not just about her, but about you. And your fear of meeting her on that symbolic ground? You want to be desired? Then you must become dangerous, not reckless, not abusive, but uncontainable. Someone who touches her emotional edge without trying to control it. Someone who speaks a truth that her ego can't quite digest, but her unconscious recognizes. You've been told to be polite, be stable, be nice. And yet, how often does she desire the man who disrupts her emotional order? Why is it the man who challenges her, emotionally, intellectually, sexually, that awakens something in her? Because safety without mystery is a cage, and mystery is the pulse of desire. So let me ask you now, have you ever made her think about you days later, not because of what you gave her, but because of what you awoke in her. What she couldn't name, what she didn't expect. That's not manipulation. That's not deceit. That's archetypal. It's primal. It's why Freud called it a dark continent. Not because women are unknowable, but because most men are afraid to go deep enough to find out. Do you dare to? Because that's where we're headed next. Into the second layer of this psychological seduction, where every symbol, every fantasy, every silence is a door, and only those who dare to open it can walk through. Do you remember the first time a woman looked at you, and you felt something deeper than attraction? It wasn't just lust, it was the weight of being seen, as if her gaze pierced through your armor and touched something raw, unfinished, unwritten. That's not just chemistry. That's projection. Freud taught us that we don't fall in love with people. We fall in love with symbols, images, echoes from childhood, unconscious needs we've buried beneath years of pretending to be men who have it all together. She's not falling for your bank account. She's not dreaming of your car. She's watching how your presence makes her feel, what emotion you awaken in her body, what forgotten memory your touch revives, what fantasy your voice slips into. And you're doing the same, thinking you love her. But you might only love the feeling of being needed, of being the one she turns to, of finally feeling important in a world that constantly tells you to sit down and shut up. This is why Freud's ideas still matter, because he wasn't describing sex. He was decoding the architecture of desire. Desire is never about the thing itself. It's about what the thing represents. When she craves power, it might be safety. When she avoids intimacy, it might be fear of disappearing. When she tests your strength, it might be her unconscious asking, "Will you stay, even when I push you away?" And if you react, if you flinch, if you get angry or withdraw, you fail the test. Not because you weren't strong enough, but because you answered her symbolic cry with logic and ego. You didn't hear what she was really saying. Let me make this simple. You will never understand what she wants until you accept that she doesn't fully understand it herself. That's the terrifying beauty of it. And it's your opportunity. The man who knows how to read the chaos, not to control it, but to dance with it, he becomes unforgettable. Because most men shrink back when a woman shifts. They call her too much. They say she's crazy. They label her emotions as drama. But the ones who listen between the words, who hold still in the storm, who see the symbol in her frustration, her silence, her seduction, they see her. Not just the woman in front of them, but the whole cathedral of longing behind her eyes. Freud said that symptoms are substitutes for repressed desires. So when she's cold for no reason, when she flirts with indifference, when she explodes over something small, don't panic, don't retreat. Ask yourself, what is she trying to express that she doesn't feel safe saying out loud? And now I ask you, are you that safe space? Not the nice guy safety, the dangerous safety. The man who can handle contradiction, who won't collapse when things get emotionally complex, who won't need her to always be sweet, pleasant, or easy. Because the woman who desires you deeply will not always be easy. She'll test you, not because she's cruel, but because she's searching for something ancient. A masculine presence that doesn't flinch, that doesn't lecture, that doesn't hide. The more she trusts you, the more she'll push. Why? Because deep down, she's asking, will you leave me when I show you who I really am? That's the paradox Freud never stopped circling. Women want love, but also power. They want safety, but also danger. They want closeness, but also distance. And that doesn't make them broken. It makes them whole. Only a man who is emotionally literate enough to see these layers will ever taste the kind of intimacy that makes all the surface-level games feel like kindergarten. Now, let's take it further. Let's look at the dark continent again, but this time with new eyes. Freud wasn't saying that women were a mystery to be solved. He was saying that female desire refuses to fit inside the rational structures men try to impose. It will leak out, in a fantasy, in a dream, in a sudden mood change, in the way she says your name. And if you're paying attention, you can speak to that part of her. Not the social mask, not the performance, but the child, the rebel, the goddess, the animal. What does she want? She wants to be seen without being explained. She wants to feel your presence without being dominated. She wants to be free to feel without being fixed. But more than anything, she wants a man who knows how to navigate the symbolic terrain of desire. That's your power. To speak the language she's forgotten. To remind her of the parts of herself she's silenced. To mirror her complexity without fear. So stop asking, what should I say? Start asking, what part of her am I waking up? That's the question Freud would want you to ask. And if you're ready to see what happens when you stop speaking to her ego and start speaking into her unconscious. And maybe that's why most men fail. Not because they're weak, not because they're unworthy, but because they're reading her surface and calling it truth. Yet underneath the performance, beneath the smiles, the silence, and the confusion, something else is speaking. It's not logic, it's not behavior, it's something older, something buried, something she doesn't even know how to ask for. And if you're ready to stop speaking to her ego and start speaking into her unconscious, then it's time to go deeper. So what is it that's buried? Freud didn't offer easy answers, only dangerous ones. Because to understand what a woman truly wants, you must be willing to question everything you've learned about her. Everything you've been told is normal. Everything society, media, even your own mother may have modeled as female desire. Because female desire isn't polite, it isn't clean, and it doesn't ask for permission. It erupts, but rarely on the surface. It slips through symbols, slips of the tongue, jokes, dreams. Desire doesn't announce itself. It masks, it plays. And this is where men fail to listen. Not because they're not paying attention, but because they're listening to the wrong channel. She says one thing. Her body does another. Her words soothe. But her gaze cuts through your spine, and deep down, you feel it. That there's a current under her softness, a hunger, an intensity, a chaos you were never taught how to handle. So what do? You either chase her validation or try to control her. You appease or dominate. But both are wrong. Because her desire isn't something to tame. It's something to witness. But to do that, you have to stop looking at her as your source of worth. This is where Freud's mirror turns inward. He didn't just talk about her unconscious. He forced men to look at theirs. And what you might not be ready to face is this. Your need to please her, fix her, impress her, win her, isn't about her at all. It's about you. It's about your fear of being forgotten, your fear of being unloved, your fear of being abandoned like the little boy who once reached out and was met with silence. That boy is still reaching, still performing, but he's doing it through the body of a man who doesn't understand why women keep slipping away. And here's where you come in, because maybe you've noticed it too. Maybe you've had moments where she looked at you like you were the only man on earth, only to go cold the next day. Moments where her words didn't match her energy. Moments where you felt like she was testing something in you that had nothing to do with logic. I want to ask you something. Really stop and think. What do you believe women actually want? Not what they say, not what they post online, not what you've been told is right. What do you actually believe they want? From you, from men, from life? Type it below. This is not rhetorical. I want to know. What is it you've seen? What is it you've felt, but maybe never said out loud? Because Freud didn't figure this out alone. He listened. He observed. And if we're going to decode this symbolic language, you have to speak too. Go to the comments right now. Drop a single sentence, a theory, a frustration, a truth that's burned in your chest for years. You won't be alone. Because there are thousands of men, silent, lurking, half awake, who feel the exact same thing. And when one man speaks his truth, the others remember theirs. You're not crazy. You're not broken. You're just waking up. Now, breathe. You don't have to fix anything. You don't have to prove anything. You're not here to decode her, to control her. You're here to see. And if you've come this far, it means something inside you already has. You've seen the cracks in the illusion. Now let's pull the curtain all the way back. You've been told that desire is obvious, that it's visible in the way she dresses, texts, smiles, flirts, that if she says yes, it's yes. If she says no, it's no. That it's all about timing, charm, technique. But none of that explains why the most confident men still get ghosted. Why the nice guy gets overlooked. Why even the powerful man, the one who has it all together, still feels something missing when he looks in her eyes. It's because desire isn't linear. It's not a straight path from A to B. It loops, folds, hides behind curtains. Freud called this the return of the repressed. And in women, that repression runs deep. Not just because of culture, not just because of religion, but because of language itself. She was taught to speak in acceptability, to want in silence, to desire, only within the bounds of safety. So what happens to everything else? It gets buried in the symbolic, in glances, in stories, in fantasies she never dares say aloud. And most men, they never learn to read this language, but some do. Some men stop playing the game of tactics, tricks, and tactics. They stop trying to get her. They stop performing, and they begin to observe. They watch her, not to manipulate, but to understand. They hear what isn't said. They feel the tension between her words and her body. They stop assuming they know what she wants, and start letting her reveal it in her own time. That's the real shift. Not in her, in you. Because once you stop needing her to validate your identity, something changes. She feels it. She leans in. Not because you chased her, but because you finally stepped into your center. Women don't crave perfection. They crave presence. A man who isn't performing. A man who listens not with fear, but with fascination. And that man, he doesn't ask, what do women want? He asks, what is she showing me right now, through the language she doesn't even realize she's speaking? That's where attraction lives, in that subtle space, where her hesitation isn't rejection, it's invitation, where her silence isn't emptiness, it's charged, where her contradictions aren't mistakes, but messages. You don't need to be a Freudian scholar. You don't need to understand every term, every theory. You only need to be awake, awake to the symbols, to the signals, to the way she mirrors your unconscious just as you mirror hers. Desire is not a destination. It's a dialogue. And if you're still here, reading these words, then you already speak more of the language than you realize. So now I'll leave you with this. What's the one symbol you've ignored for too long? What dream keeps returning? What pattern in women have you seen again and again, but never really asked why? Go to the comments. Share it. Speak it. Because when you give shape to the unconscious, it loses its power over you. You become the one who reads. And as we've already said, he who reads commands. If this opens something in you, something deep, something hard to explain, then this is only the beginning. There's more, much more. This channel isn't about easy answers. It's about the truths no one dares speak. It's about taking back your power, not by force, but by understanding. So if that's the journey you want, if you're ready to stop being confused by women and start reading them like a secret book, subscribe now, not tomorrow, not when it's convenient. Now, because the next truth I reveal will shake everything you thought you knew. And trust me, you won't want to miss it.